Okay. All right. So please jump in, ask questions, put them in the chat or come off mute, raise your hand, anything like that, or just cut me off and say, hey, I have a question. But we're going to talk about interview prep. This is actually one of my favorite topics because there's a lot that can go into it, but the more you prepare, the better your experience is going to be. And this is for anything that you do in life in general. If you play a sport or an instrument, or you sing or dance, or you knit, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is that you do, you are not the best at it when you first started. And the more you do it, the better you become and the more confident you'll feel. So confidence, you'll hear me say this 100 times. Confidence is the number one skill that you can master to be successful, not just in business, but in life in general. You have to feel confident in your ability, in yourself. And the way that you do that is through preparation. So there's a saying, it says proper preparation prevents poor performance. There's another P that goes in there, but since I teach at a college with Methodist undertones, we're going to leave that out. So proper preparation prevents poor performance. You have to prepare. I have done this where I haven't prepared. I have gone into interviews with zero preparation. And I'm going to tell you, I was already nervous to begin with. And as I'm walking in, completely unprepared, it was even worse. So learn from my mistakes. You have to prepare. So let's start. What the first thing that you should do. Well, when we talked about this, if you think back to our resume and branding kind of our that session that we did when we talked about resumes, you have to look through the job description. You have to, when you're writing a cover letter, when that kind of stuff, like you already have started researching the company and the position, so you did that in the application process. So you should know enough about the position that you're applying for. You should know enough about the company from just your resume. Now it's time to dive in a little deeper and really get yourself ready for this interview. Now, the first thing I will tell you is scour that website. Everybody has a website unless it's a new business or it's maybe a little small mom and pop place or something like that. They have a website or they're on LinkedIn. Scour, 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 get as much information as you can. I get that it's not just like typical, like, okay, it was founded in 1982 or, here's the president. Like, yes, you need to know that, but that's just so that you can speak intelligently, not so that you're going to incorporate that specifically into the interview, but that you're just armed with as much knowledge about this company as possible. You also need to know the job description. Now, take notes. I'm going to grab my portfolio. Hang on a second. All right, so take notes. I have a portfolio of sorts. I put stickers on it. My background is blurring it out. I put stickers on it, so I don't recommend that you do that. This is not one that I take to businesses anymore. This is when I just go like on campus or career tours or whatever. But you open it up and you can see I've got, I don't know how to, okay. Well, I don't know anything about filters. All right. So on one side, I have a whole legal pad. On the other side is where I would keep extra copies of my resume. I also have places for my business card to collect business cards and a place to keep a pen. Go to your interview with a nice portfolio. Now, I've since invested in a really nice one that I don't have stickers on, that I take when I'm actually going somewhere, if I'm going to a professional meeting or if I'm meeting with a new employer of some sort, I would take that. But when you are preparing for your interview, write down as if you're studying for a test. This is an interview is an open book test. You're going to go in with your portfolio, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, but you're going to have it with you and you're just going to be like, hey, do you mind if I take notes? They're going to be like, oh my God, yeah, please. That shows that you care, that you're engaged, that you really want this, that you put forth the effort to study, to write stuff down, to gather up facts so that you can ask good questions. You can be armed with good answers if they ask, because they're going to ask you some questions like, for example, there's going to be top 10 interview questions that you can most likely bank on being asked. And you want to be as prepared as possible for those top 10. And I'll get into those in just a minute. So part of your preparation is to look at that website, Find their mission and vision statement. That should be the number one thing that you look for first and foremost. Look and see if they have a leadership team breakdown. Are they in the news? Have they published any papers? Are they doing great things for the community? If so, what? Be specific. And your job description, where does that fall? Where does this position fall in the hierarchy of the organization? Who will you be reporting to? Look that person up on LinkedIn. If there's a CEO, a president, a founder, a board of trustees, look up as much information as you possibly can. You're going to be collecting all this information so that you can go back and you can reference it when you're in the interview. But you also need to collect, I would say, 3 to 4 really good questions that you want to ask in your interview. So an interview is a two-way street. It's back and forth between you and the interviewer. Don't think of it as you're just there to answer their questions. They have to be able to answer your questions too. Guys, they're not doing you a favor by interviewing you and offering you the job if you get it, right? They're hiring you for your services, whatever those may be, whether it's bookkeeping or sales or data entry or customer service or human resources, it doesn't matter, right? They are going to pay you for this service. And so you need to have good, solid questions that are going to help you determine if you want to take the position if offered to you. Hey, Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's actually really genius. Let me say that. The second, how do you come up with questions that don't sound like generic or like AI generated?
A really good question because they don't want to answer questions that you like. Yeah, if you put in ChatGPT, what question should I ask my employer, right? Um, it has to feel genuine. It has to feel like specific to the role. So the questions that I normally try to come up with um, are going to be either specific, towards the leadership team that I am interviewing with, but even if it's more like generic, like workplace, culture stuff, make sure it is something that you actually truly want answers to that are going to help you determine whether or not you want to work there. So some great questions might be like, tell me, what do you like about working here? You can ask that to pretty much anybody. I have some other ones that were given to me by employers. I'm going to pull them up real fast. One was Alex Dry from Visit Central Florida Sports. And he says a really great question that you could ask at the end because they're going to ask you, their last question is going to be, do you have any questions for us? And you better have some questions. If you just go, no, I'm good, you have just, you've just killed your interview. Okay. You have to ask questions. Don't not ask questions. So this one could be one. What about my interview or experience do I need to work on that would make me the ideal candidate for this position? That shows so much interest, and I'm willing to do the work, and I want to be the best candidate. Your job is to bring the value and to show them that you're the obvious choice. Now you're asking them, and they're having them think about you in the position. So what about my interview or experience do I need to work on that would make me the ideal candidate for this position? Another question you can ask, this was from Nicole Skeen from Northwestern Mutual. And this is what she does all day long. She does interviews all day long. If you were to hire me today, what homework would you want me to be doing over the next 2 weeks to prepare for this role? That's a really good one too, because you're basically setting the seeds into their brain that they're going to hire you, because now they're thinking about you in that role. So those are some really good questions. I also like to say stuff like another good one that I like a lot personally is what obstacles do you see somebody in this role generally face within the first 6 months of hire? And how do you recommend overcoming those obstacles? That's a good one too. You're thinking about being in the role. You're already taking that proactive stance. You're asking them to see you in that role as well. You're welcome, Michaela. Yeah, these are great. These are not all mine. They're definitely from other sources as well. You can definitely chat GPT, ask for some great questions. Just make sure that you make it your own. tweak it, twist it so that it's your voice, it sounds like you, it's how you talk, that kind of stuff. Don't just ask generic questions, and don't ask questions that can be found easily on the website. Like, well, when were you founded? How much have you grown? That kind of stuff. Those are really generic, Matthew, and they're not going to like that. They're going to be like, look it up. You know what I mean? So the questions that you should be asking now let me back up too, because I said in the interview, you guys are going to be going back and forth asking questions. So when I've got my portfolio in my hand and I've got my notes open and I'm taking notes and I'm interacting and I'm taking them, oh yeah, I read that. I saw that you blah blah blah. I'll flip to wherever it is I have that in my notes. Oh, I saw that you guys were growing. You guys just did a 10% increase in your employee, growth. Like that's impressive. What led you to that? Or what was the vision for that? Or do you plan to continue to grow? Would be something that would be relevant if it comes up in the interview, not just like, oh, how much have you guys grown? Um, should be more like okay, so Michaela says, so really for interviews, the questions should be more so opinion based, like personalized. Oh, 100%, Michaela, you nailed it. You don't want these cookie cutter answers. You want to be prepared, and the more you prepare, again, like I said earlier, the better you're going to feel and better you're going to do. But you have to prepare for each one individually. So now, if I'm a teacher and I'm going to go teach I'm trying to apply for teaching jobs, they're going to be asking me very similar questions in the whole education atmosphere. But I still want to tailor it specifically to every answer should be specific to you and your experience. Tie it back to previous experience that you've had, and then tie it to the role that you are applying for. So I know that's kind of a lot, but as long as you always keep things relevant. So I said that there's top 10 interview questions. So tell me about yourself right off the bat. You can be pretty much guaranteed that they're going to ask you to tell me about yourself. But they're not asking for your biography. They're not asking for, well, where you grew up and how many siblings do you have, and that you had a cow for a friend because your sister wouldn't play with you. That might be my story. That it's not relevant, right? It's not relevant. They're asking about your journey, how you got to where you are, tie it to some previous experience. But like, what do you love about what you do? Why are you applying for this job? And if you're like, I really have no idea how I would answer that, think about your major. Why did you choose your major? Start there. Look, okay, finance, sports business, accounting, horticulture, underwater basket weaving. Why did you pick that major? Now work backwards. Why did you choose that? Where did that love come from? Was it, you always were good with numbers, you loved math, you took extra math classes, you found that then you found out Florida Southern has this great accounting program. And so you started taking accounting classes. And what do you love about that? Or maybe it's sports. I know I'm going to pick on Daniel here just because I know his background. He's sports business. He's been in sports his whole life. He loves everything that there is about sports. So he could talk really intelligently about his extensive experience in, his internships and the jobs that he's had and experience that he's had, all related around sports as he's going for a sports related position. As long as it is relevant. So you don't want to start talking about your hobbies and how you spend your weekend and your dreams and fantasies as if they're not aligned to the role. So as long as you keep it specific. Another question that they're definitely going to ask is why should we hire you? And this again is why your answer is going to be so good because you have done the research. You know that they are going to ask you this. So the way that you would answer the why should we hire you question, you're going to know that job description inside and out. What do they want you to do? How can you line that up with any of the skills or competencies or qualifications that they say you're going to do in this role? Whether it's a soft skill, like you have to have critical thinking skills, or whether it's a hard skill, like you have to be really good with presentation, right? I'm going to look at my resume, look at my work experience, and then I'm going to say, okay, where have I done these things and done them well that I can, be very specific in my answer about that? Why should we hire you? Well, I know that this role requires excellent critical thinking, and I possess critical thinking skills. And I'm going to tell a very brief but very specific story about when I demonstrated critical thinking skills in a previous situation, hopefully from a previous job or internship. But if you don't have any work experience, it could be from a club, a sport, an organization, or a classroom experience. But you typically don't want these to be like, oh, me and my sister, or my sister and I, or something like that, unless you guys work together. So it needs to, you really want to tie it back to professional experiences, professional stories as much as possible. Why do you want to work here is another question that they're going to ask you. Why do you want to work here? This is when you're going to, again, use your research. I know that you guys were, you know, founded in 1972 to you and two of your friends at a card table on the third floor of an apartment building. And I love a good underdog story. And I followed your progress from blah, blah, blah. And you've helped this many people, and you're going to talk factually, or, you know, if it's Coca-Cola, why not Pepsi? If it's Adidas, why not Nike? Like think about how you're going to make yourself stand out. You don't want to say stuff just like, oh, because I heard you're a great company to work for. Okay, terrible answer. It might be true, but that's not why you're going to work there. Definitely don't say, oh, well, I'm just using this as a stepping stone in my career so I could get experience. Don't say that. I mean, that may be the case. Honestly, that may be the case, but don't say that. Okay, keep that to yourself. I never tell you to lie in an interview, but you can omit. Um, so what is it about this company? What is it about this position? But focus on the value that you are bringing them, not what it's going to do for you. So, you might think a good answer is like, oh, well, I mean, all the stuff I learned in the classroom, I'm going to be able to apply those skills and knowledge and grow my skills in this role. But you're focused on you. And I don't mean this in a negative way. I'm just saying the employers want to know what you're going to do for them. They don't care about you. And I don't say that in a mean way. It's not that they don't care about you, it's that they are focused on how are you going to fix our problem? Because if they have an open position, they have a problem. You are the solution. You are the one that's going to fix that problem by providing the services necessary for that role. You make yourself stand out by making yourself the obvious choice to me. Okay. So those are some of the top interview questions. They'll also ask about your strengths. What do you consider to be your greatest strength? Only pick a strength to talk about that was listed on the job description. I could be the best underwater basket weaver this side of the Mississippi. But if my role has nothing to do with underwater basket weaving, then for me to talk about how good I am at that, it does not bring any value. It does not showcase my skill set and what makes me the obvious choice. They're over here like, what? Like I'm a phenomenal mom. I get that all the time, and I will own that hands down. I'm not bragging. That's just the fact. I have amazing kids. I worked my butt off to raise those two children. One's a Marine and one's a rising eighth grader at McKeel. They are respectful. They are polite. They are kind. They are good people. I'm going to own that all day long. That was me. That was my work. That was my blood, sweat, and tears, but it has nothing to do with the position I'm applying for. I shouldn't talk about it because now they're just going to be like, give me the space, right? It has to be tied to the job description, the responsibilities, the duties that they're looking for in that role. Let them paint a picture in their mind of you in that role, doing this job and doing it well with all the skills and the value that you bring. Another trick, always have water with you when you guys go to an interview. Always have like a water bottle with you because if they ever stump you on a question, you need a couple extra minutes like to think. You don't want to just be sitting there like, oh God, because now I'm like, okay, oh my God, there's silence. Ah, it's awkward silence. Ah, say something, right? Instead, take a sip of your water. Oh, that's a really good question. Okay. Mm, excuse me. Well, see, I just bought myself, I don't know, 10 seconds, right? Maybe it was just to help me calm my nerves or to get my thoughts in order or something like that, right? So drink water and you'll be nervous, your mouth will be dry. So always drink water. Don't bring like soda or tea or coffee or anything that could make you burpy or anything like that. Water is the best way to go. Okay. Um, they'll ask you what your weakness, strengths, maybe what your 5-year plan is, so there's a lot of different ways to prepare. But if you know your job description inside and out, you know the company, and you prepared some good stories about when you demonstrated these skills. So this would be a good exercise for you to do if you haven't done this already. I know Daniel did this in class. Like Matthew, have you taken the professional development? I know I get can't remember who's in class or who I just know on campus.
Yeah, I did take the class. It was very informative.
Okay. I thought so. I thought so. So I know Daniel and Matthew have done this, but think about top skills that that you're really good at, whether it's critical thinking or data analysis. Think about and the skills that you have professionally that relate to the field that you'd be going into, and then take some time. So, like I said, we did this as a class activity. Take the time to think about, okay, so if it's critical thinking, when did I demonstrate critical thinking? And don't just say, oh, when I was a presidential ambassador, or when I was the treasurer of my fraternity, or when I was the captain of my sport, right? That's fine, but give me a specific story of when. I mean, like it has to be specific, short and brief, but specific, and where it paints you as the hero. So yes, I demonstrate excellent critical thinking skills. When I was a professor at Florida Southern College, there was this happened, and I'm going to talk a really brief story about when something happened. Maybe something fell apart. We weren't prepared. We had to do something, and I had to think really critically to get around an obstacle. Um, we had a new integration of software, or we had a changeover in leadership, or um, you know, the campus was closed for whatever reason, and I needed to we were doing a project after hours. I don't know. But when you demonstrated those critical thinking skills, so be very specific about that. So I would take the time to do that before you start interviewing so that you have a good 10 stories that you can pull from that demonstrate skills that might be asked of you in the interview. And you'll know that based off of the job description. Okay, so let's back up a little bit to going back to preparing. So before, as you're looking at the company, you're going over the job description again, just to make sure you're super comfortable with it. Now, how are you going to get there, right? If it's a local company, I highly recommend trying to do like a drive-by the day before or 2 days before so you can see the route that you're going to take. Things like parking. Are there parking garages or a parking lot? Is it easy to find? Again, I speak from personal experience. This campus has a lot of buildings. I didn't think about that. I was just thinking, oh, Florida Southern. I know Florida Southern very well. And so I didn't read the email in its entirety with the map attached that told me exactly what building to go to, what parking lot I was going to park in, to look for my name on this red stanchion that was reserving me a spot. I didn't do any of that. And so again, learn from my mistakes. I was driving all over this campus like a crazy person because I was trying to find the admissions building and having no thought at all that it's right on the front of the campus down by the lake, right across from, or 2 doors down from Becker. But I didn't know that then. And so now I'm driving around like crazy, and I was a little late to my interview, and they even saw me, my future team saw me just driving back and forth around the campus looking for my parking spot. So don't do that to yourself, because then honestly too, now I'm a little frazzled. Instead of being nice and calm, and like ready for this interview, I'm all like, oh my God, I'm late. Now my makeup's getting all funky, my hair's starting to frizz, and it's just crazy. So find out where you're going, map it out. If you have to drive on I-4, give yourself plenty of time. I mean, literally twice as much as that you would normally need. And then sit in your car and read a book if you need to, or find a coffee shop that's close or something. But that I-4 traffic is insane. But is there street parking? Is it paid parking? Is there valet parking? Is there a garage? Is there a lot? There's a lot that you probably wouldn't have thought about until you've been there, done that. So make sure you know where you're going, have an extra route laid out, definitely GPS it just so, because that will tell you if there's construction or an accident or if you need to reroute. It'll give you how much time it'll actually take you. Love GPS for that. I'll GPS myself to the grocery store, even though I live right around the corner, just because, well, one, because I can. And I can lost my own backyard. So highly recommend that you do that. Now, also your outfit the day before, make sure that your outfit's already laid out, clean, pressed, the whole 9 yards. If you haven't worn this outfit, you should get a suit of some sort. If you don't have one, go to Career Clothes Closet in Rogers. We have an entire clothes closet that you can choose from. You can borrow it, or you can take a whole outfit with you if it really fits your needs, if you don't want to go out and buy professional clothes. But you should have a good suit that you feel really good in. When you put it on, you're like, bam, I am on it, right? Make sure it's not too tight, it's not too big. Make sure it actually fits you and it's steamed or ironed. There's no wrinkles. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So this is important. You need to dress professionally. Now, I'm talking at a professional interview level. It wouldn't make sense to go in a suit and tie with a briefcase to go interview to be a lifeguard, right? So some of this, we need to use our common sense. If it's for a professional interview, and since we're all in school to get professional jobs, that's the level I'm speaking to. But you definitely want to make sure that you are dressed appropriately. If you're not sure, ask. Ask whoever you set the interview up. What's the attire there? What's the dress code? I still, no matter where I go, I wear a suit. I wear a suit all the time. It makes me feel good, makes me feel professional. It makes me feel like I belong. It helps with any type of imposter syndrome. And so me personally, I say wear a suit. Now, for us ladies, we want to make sure that we're not showing any cleavage or anything that's low cut whatsoever. That just distracts from your professionalism. Also, no spaghetti straps, but I'm wearing, if you can see it in the video, it's a silk t tank top, but it's not spaghetti straps. Okay, big difference. And I also will have a blazer on over this when I go for an interview. Pants or skirt doesn't matter. Could be whatever you're most comfortable with. If you don't wear pantyhose often, I'm sorry, not pantyhose. If you don't wear heels often, no one wears pantyhose in Florida. You can if you want, but I wouldn't recommend it. If you don't wear heels regularly, then don't go out and buy a brand new pair of heels to wear for this interview. One, you won't walk in them very well. Two, your feet are going to hurt like crazy and it's going to make it just miserable. So wear what you're comfortable. Flats are perfectly fine as far as business attire. So wear flats if you're more comfortable with that. Wear heels if you're comfortable with that. If you're wearing a skirt, make sure it is not so short that you're having to tug on it. Again, you don't want to distract from anything that's professional. Gentlemen, if you're going to wear a suit, you're going to wear a button-down shirt. You're going to now a tie. That's going to be, I say tie, yes, but again, if it's like, hey, I'm going for Google, they all wear tennis shoes and t-shirts to work every day. Maybe a tie might be a little over the top. Slacks with a belt, socks, and nice loafers. Those are non-negotiables. Whereas if it's more of a business casual, 'cause that's business professional. If it's business casual, a nice polo or maybe a short sleeve button down, khakis or slacks would be nice. But even business casual is not blue jeans. So no blue jeans, no shorts, nothing like that. No Crocs or flippity flops or anything crazy like that. Should be closed-toed shoes, again, for the interview. Now, when I come here to work, I wear open-toed shoes sometimes to work. That's okay. The environment is perfectly okay for that. But if your office environment and nobody else is wearing open-toed shoes, I would not be the first one to wear open-toed shoes. But that's going to be a personal preference. But I've got my outfit. I've got it ready to go. My roommate hasn't borrowed it. It's not in the washing machine. It's steamed. It's ready to go. Don't try to plan it the morning of. Just like don't get gas the morning of. That's one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves as adults. Like, oh, I'll just get it in the morning. Something inevitably will happen. For me, it's always my dogs. Like if I'm trying to get out the door at a specific times, one of the dogs has some type of, I don't know, drama. They have one brain cell between the two of them. So one of them decides to have drama, and then inevitably I'm running a few minutes behind. Um, so try to plan as much as you can for the day before so that when you go, you're prepared, get there 10 to 15 minutes early. You've got your portfolio, you've got your bottle of water, you've got your suit, you've had a chance to review your questions that you're going to ask, the notes that you've taken, and you've got extra copies of your resume. Always bring extra copies of your resume because best case scenario, your interview is going to go longer than expected. And they might pull in other people who might want to talk to you because most interviews, the process, you're not going to get an offer off of interview number one. Sometimes you might, but I would say 9.5 times out of 10, it's going to be multiple interviews. And so sometimes if it's going really great, they might pull somebody in and you want to be able to slide over a copy of your resume. And even though you use your resume to apply and you probably emailed it to them, still bring copies of your resume. And I even print them on resume paper. It's not that much more expensive than copy paper, but it's a nice little investment. It's a nice little touch. So I definitely do that. Um, oh, let me back up real fast to attire. So jewelry, keep it to a minimum. Male and female, keep your jewelry to a minimum. And definitely no body spray, perfume, or cologne. People are allergic to things these days. People have, weird allergies and whatnot. So you don't want to be like choking them out before they even have a chance to like hear what you're saying, right? So you want to make sure that you're being cognizant of that. Just be clean. Take a shower, be clean, and you'll be totally fine. All right. So when you arrive, you're gonna again, depending on the organization, because everybody's different. If it's a smaller place, if it's a big corporation, I mean, again, this is why you should ask questions as you're setting up the interview. What is the check-in process? Do I have to go through security? Do I have to get a name badge? Do I have to provide any type of identification? So those are things that, depending on the company, like when we went to Raymond James as a campus to career tour, there were, first of all, several buildings on the campus. There was a specific parking lot that we had to park in. Then we had to go through security and then we had to get our badges and all this kind of stuff. Now, you should know that because if you're going in for an interview and it starts at 10 o'clock and you're rolling in there at 9:55, but you got to go through all of this process, now you're late. That's why you have to give yourself 10 to 15 minutes of extra time to make sure that you are there because you want to be checking in with whomever is at the front, whether it's a security guard or there's a receptionist or secretary or a whole office team or something like that. You want to be able to walk in, know who you're interviewing with, what time your interview is. So I'd walk in, I'd be like, "Good morning. My name is Megan Morrow. I have a 10 a.m. interview with Daniel Johnson." You know, that I'm going to do that at least 10 minutes before my interview because my interview is supposed to start at 10. If I am just checking myself in at 10, I'm late. Michaela, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I'm watching my nephew right now. But um, can I get your opinion on like handshakes at like interviews? I know I'm hearing different things about they say sometimes like you should wait for the interviewer to shake their like have their hand out or like when you first walk into the room. Like, does it just depend on the environment or like what's your opinion on shaking hands at an interview?
So that's a great question. I always shake hands. I mean, first of all, especially as a woman, and I'm going to be interviewing with a man or something like that, like I want to establish myself as an equal. And so I'm going to walk right up. I'm going to have my hands out. I'm going to be, first of all, I'm eye contact and smiling. I'm happy to be there. And this person is my equal. And so I'm going to go right out and be like, hi. And if they don't put their hand out, I'm not going to leave it out there, so that would just take a little of reading the room. I would say sometimes different cultures might not shake hands. So if you know that you're going to be interviewing with someone from a different cultural group than you, maybe do a little research and see what is appropriate for that. Do they shake hands or do they bow like in some Asian cultures, where they might bow to each other? I don't know if that would be the same going cross culturally. So those would be some good questions that you could research on your own. But I always, hands down, firm, strong handshake with eye contact, a smile, and my name all the time. And I shake hands everywhere I go because I want to keep practicing. I want to feel confident. So a handshake is going to be straight on. None of this like where you barely put your hand in their hand. They're like, you're not some queen. I'm not going to kiss your hand. So it needs to be a strong, firm handshake. Now, I would follow the lead of the interviewer. If they're giving you a limp hand to shake, don't be overly aggressive trying to shake their hand hard, follow their lead. But I would, especially as a young woman as yourself, to establish yourself as, you're there, you're meant to be there. You don't have imposter syndrome. You're confident, you're comfortable. You know that this is where you're supposed to be. Head up, shoulders back, smile, firm, strong handshake every time. But that's my advice. Now, if somebody else tells you elsewhere, or like, hey, I know I've interviewed for this company and don't shake their hand, I would say maybe listen to that. It's going to be a case by case basis, but I've never been in a professional environment where I have been the one to initiate a handshake and um, it's been discarded or it's not been reciprocated. Now, during COVID was a little different. No one was shaking hands. We were, even doing that stupid weird elbow bump, which I refused to do. I was like, no, I'll just wave to you. But okay, so that answers your question.
Yes,
You're
thank
very
you so
welcome.
much. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I love the questions. If you have any more, let me know. Um, okay, so again, you're going in there, you've got your suit on, you've got your portfolio, you've got your water. That's all you need to bring. Now, I carry a purse. Gentlemen, if you carry a purse, no judgment. But if you've got that, great. But don't be bringing in a whole bunch of stuff. And I cannot believe I have to say this, but I'm going to say it. And if this pertains to you, this is not directed at you. So please don't be offended. But do not take anybody with you to your interview. I read a study and I have talked to some employers who have to tell the interviewee and the parent that they brought with them that no, the parent cannot come into the interview with the student. 66%, guys, 66% of recent college graduates took their parent on a job interview with them. They cannot go to work with you. Therefore, they should not be at the interview with you either. Now, and here's what I'm saying, don't let this offend you or anything like that. I know that some people have maybe they have anxiety or they have an accommodation where they have an emotional support animal or something like that. Like I understand that. And you are well within your rights to have those accommodations if you have those. And they'll ask you, do you need any reasonable accommodations in order to perform your job? You should be honest about that. But your friends, your significant other, your parents, they cannot go into the interview with you. It needs to be just you. Now, if your parents are dropping you off or a friend is dropping you off, which is perfectly fine, have them drop you off, but then go. I wouldn't even say wait in the parking lot. I would be like, go somewhere. I did this when my son, who was 16, and he didn't have his own vehicle yet. I dropped him off at a restaurant that he wanted to interview with, and then I drove across the street to another restaurant or across the parking lot, and I waited for him in there, and then he had to come and walk over there. I wasn't gonna, wait in the car or wait in the restaurant. And that's a typical job for teenagers. We're talking about you guys as professionals. You've graduated college or you're going for internships. You cannot have people go with you. Go ahead, Michaela.
This question randomly popped into my head, but what's your opinions on phones and interviews? So typically I always have my phone on like silent and like if like okay, like you brought up an example of like, oh, if your parent is dropping you off, like for those interviews in high school, I would honestly just leave my phone in the car with my mom. But like now,
Mhm.
like in college, I'll have a bag and sometimes I'll just leave it like in a bag. I never put it on the table, but like what's your opinion on like phones at interviews?
So if you're going to have your phone with you, because just like you, I have my phone on me at all times. It's in my purse. Gentlemen's probably in their pockets. So I would turn it on do not disturb. Your interview is going to be 30 to 60 minutes. You People can go an hour without getting in touch with you. And I've heard people say, "Oh, what if my family has an emergency?" Okay, then whoever would contact you and who would absolutely need to get through no matter what, then you can add them to like your favorites list, which it will ring through the do not disturb. But I would put your phone on do not disturb. Um, And the same with your watch. So I have a smartwatch, most people do, and the texts come right through my watch, or emails or any other kind of notification. Now I'm very minimalist, so I barely let my phone give me any notifications. I think like text, phone, email, calendar, and maybe LinkedIn. But other than that, nothing else gets my attention. So but even with my watch on my wrist, and I hear it ding, like I'm not going to look at it, but it definitely distracted me for even if it's for a split second, because I can feel that ding on my wrist. So if that becomes a problem, because even if you start doing this and looking at your watch, even if you're not even doing it that noticeably, but you're looking down and looking at your watch, that is the equivalent of picking up your phone and texting in the middle of an interview. So do not under any circumstances get on your phone during an interview. Now, again, if somebody keeps calling and they're one of your favorites, or they're considered an emergency contact and they've broken through the do not disturb, you know, you might as well tell the interview, I'm so sorry, I have to take this, versus it just ringing, ringing, or buzzing and buzzing. Because if you have it on silent, it's probably on vibrate, and they're going to hear that too. So I would turn off the sound, I would turn off the vibrate, I would put it on do not disturb. Do not use your phone, which I've got mine like right here. Do not use your phone's notes app. Do not do that. I know that you're like, well, I'm using the notes app. I'm taking notes. Get a piece of, get a notebook, use your portfolio that I keep like referencing. Use your portfolio, take your notes that way. I had a young man apply for the Dean's Advisory Council, and he didn't get picked. And even the dean came to me and said that this person was a qualified candidate. He goes, but he was on his phone the whole time. And I was like, I was like appalled. And when I went and spoke with him, he's like, no, oh my God, I was taking notes. I was taking notes. But the perception, and perception is reality. The perception is that this kid was just texting away on his phone during the entire interview. And it was a group interview. So don't do that. I wouldn't even say, hey, by the way, I'm going to take notes on my phone. Don't do that either. Just go old school, go with pen and paper. But when it comes to your phone, Michaela, like you said, don't put it up on the desk. Absolutely not. I know we all do that. We get to restaurants, we get to our friend's house, we get to study. Everybody puts their phone on the table. But that's so that you can check it. You don't need to be checking it. So either leave it in your car, put it on do not disturb. Definitely turn off the ring and the vibrate if you can't be parted with it. But I would, under no circumstances, look at your phone. I've had that happen to another person. It was an employer that I'm close with, that I know very well. I sent him a student for an internship, which, for everything he did great. He said, but in mid-interview, the kid legit pulled his phone out, texted, and then put his phone back in and resumed answering the question. He stopped in mid-answer to answer a text message. And the interviewer was like, he goes, I didn't even know, he goes, I was so thrown off, but he's like, I'm not offering him any position, because that's how you represent yourself. That shows me how you're going to represent our company out to our clients. And you mean to tell me that you couldn't go a half an hour to an hour max to respond to somebody? No. So that's a long answer, Michaela. but the point is, no phones whatsoever. No phones, no smartwatches, nothing that's going to give you notifications. If you can't ignore the ding and the vibrate on your wrist from your smartwatch, just take your watch off. Wear a regular watch if you absolutely have to have something on your wrist. But I've gotten really good at ignoring it, and especially a lot of times, if I'm teaching, I don't even hear it, because I get so into it, and I'm animated, and I'm all over the place, and I'm excited and doing whatever it is I'm doing. But if I'm having a one-on-one conversation and my watch is continually buzzing, then it's going to be distracting. And then last thing you want is to be like trying to answer an interview question, but you're like, crap, I lost my train of thought because my brain toggled over to this other text task, and now I have to toggle back, and I don't know where I was. So err on the side of caution, and I would say no phones.
Thank you.
Excellent question. You're very welcome. All right, so you're going to answer all the interview questions. Like I said, it's a back and forth. You guys are asking questions, they're asking questions. hopefully, you're enjoying the conversation and it's not super stiff. I mean, I've been in all different kinds of interviews you can possibly imagine. But here's something I want you to be thinking about. Like while you are talking with this person about the position, about the company, and about your roles and responsibilities and your past experiences, I also want you to be like finding something that you can connect with this person. So, for example, if you come into my office, you'll see, well, I used to have a glass chess set with like dragons and bones and everything like that. It was really, really pretty, and it was a great conversation piece. Um, I have pictures of my kids in my office. I've got a gnome. I like gnomes. So I have a Steeler for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have a gnome dressed out in Steeler garb, and then I've got some stuff on my bookshelf and stuff. So anyway, so like look around and see if there's ways that you can connect with this person that has nothing to do with the job per se, something that's more on a personal level. So if you walked into my office and you saw my oldest son is Marine, I've got his Marine portrait framed and I've got it in 3 different places in my office. You might notice that, and that's something about being in a military family, or, the I have a travel wall too. You could say, "Oh, tell me where have you gone to? Where have you traveled?" Something that you maybe had the same experience. Maybe you start talking about being a swimmer, and then the person, oh, I swam too, or oh, I used to coach swimming. Something that you guys can connect on that's going to help anchor you in their memory. Because at the end of the interview, when you go home, you're going to send a thank you note and you're going to reference this piece. I'm going to talk about that in a quick minute. So be focused, be paying attention, but also be aware of your surroundings. What is it that you could possibly connect with? Maybe there's books on my bookshelf that you've read or that you want to read, or I have these stuffed owls who think that they're penguins. Don't ask me. They have an identity crisis and I just perpetuate it. Maybe you could ask me about my penguins. Um, Again, something that is not related to the job. So you do the interview, you've asked their questions, they've asked your questions, they're going to say, "Do you have any questions for us?" And that's when you're going to ask some of those really good, I would have like 2 to 3 really, really good questions that would not be answered in the interview, like the ones that I told you earlier, the ones that I like to use. You could have some of those. Um, what are the professional development opportunities? Where do you see the biggest gaps in this role? How do you see me fitting in here? Anything like that. Then there's that handshake again. You're going to smile. You're going to make eye contact. You're going to stand up. Never shake hands sitting down. You're going to stand up, shake hands, thank them for their time. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I'm very excited about the opportunity at ABC Company, and I look forward to hearing from you, right? That's also when you're going to ask them, when do you think you'll be making a decision? And whatever they say, next week, 2 weeks, we just started, whatever, listen to whatever they say and always say, "Awesome. Can I follow up with you then?" They'll say yes. You make a mental note and make sure that you mark your calendar to follow up. Yes, Michaela.
Do you think even after you say like your thank yous, even after the interview, do you think like you should follow up through like an email? I know I hear sometimes they're saying like, just a thank you email is always good, just like to track back and make sure everything's good. Do you think that's good, or like just saying thank you in the interview after it's done is enough?
No, no, you are spot on. So after you're going to thank them in the interview for taking the time to meet with you, shake hands. The interview is still going until you physically leave the property. So don't start acting a fool in the hallway. Don't go bother the receptionist. Just leave. Keep your professional persona till you get in your vehicle, drive off the property, and then you can celebrate or cry or whatever. I've even thrown up one time, just because I was just so stinking nervous. And then before the end of the day, you are going to send them a thank you email. This is part of your follow-up. You're going to follow up twice, at least twice. So this one, like you've heard correctly. So I'm going to go home and say I interviewed with you, and we had a great conversation about military life, right? So I find out that you have a military family, I've got a military son, whatever. I'm going to go home and I'm going to email you, you know, "Good evening, Michaela. Good afternoon," whatever. Make sure it's before the end of the business day. "Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me and let me learn more about this XYZ position at your ABC company. Then what was one or two skills that we really talked about where I'd be a really great fit? So I'm going to reiterate my enthusiasm and my desire for the position. So I really feel like I'd be a great fit for this XYZ position as I possess. And I'm going to just really quickly run down some of the skills that you and I talked about at length in the interview. I possess the ABC skill, and I know how important it is for this position, whatever, blah, blah, blah. By painting that picture, letting them visualize me in the role. And then I'm going to say something about the personal connection. Um, and thank you again for your service to our country, or maybe it was your brother or your aunt or your grandpa or something like that. Thank you for your family's contribution and service to our country as a fellow military family. You know, it means so much. And I wish your significant other, grandpa, auntie, cousin, the best. And thank you again for your service or something like that. Um, and then I look forward to hearing from you. When did you say we were going to make a decision? So maybe if they said in 2 weeks or next week or a month, I look forward to hearing from you in 2 weeks for the next steps of the interview process. So to kind of break that down, I'm thanking them again for their time. I'm just showing gratitude. I'm glossing over a couple skills that we talked about, which are vital for the position. I'm talking about that personalized connection that we made. And the reason for that is that, oh, yeah, if I interviewed 5 people, right, today, and oh yeah, that was the person I did like her. We talked a lot about being a military family. It just brings you to the top of their memory because they're going to remember that personal conversation, that little personal touch. And then you're kind of also telling them, I want the position. I look forward to whenever you said you were going to follow up. That's it. Now, if you want to take it a step further, if you're really like, this is the job for me, this is the dream job, the mothership has called me home, and I am living my best life. You can take a little bit longer if you need to, not longer than 24 hours though. But from the time that your interview is over, within 24 hours, you're going to send that exact same thank you that we just did for the one that you're going to send before the end of the business day. But then you're going to also, in the body of that email, when we talk about the skill set that we talked about, so maybe we talked about AI taking over, everybody's worried about AI taking over all entry level positions. Go find an article or a website or a blog of some sort that talks about this and link it into the email. Either attach it as like a PDF version of the article or a link in the actual email. So I possess these skills. I know I'd be a great fit for ABC company for this XYZ position. I know how important these skills are, blah, blah, blah. And here I found this article about, what we talked about. You might find it interesting too. Wow. Wow. That really sets you apart because you went like, it's just that extra effort that nobody is putting into their interviews. So you're going to do that and then be quiet. And whenever they said that they were going to follow up, that's when you follow up. Now, whether it is next week or, if they say specifically, we are making a decision next Tuesday, or we just started our interviews for another 2 weeks or something like that. Whatever they said, you are going to follow up on that specific day. If they didn't give you a specific day, pick Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday and around 9 a.m. So Monday's crap because they're coming in off of weekend brain and who knows what their weekend entailed. Friday's crap because they're on weekend brain and most hiring decision makers and hiring managers and CEOs, they take half a day on Friday anyway. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is that sweet spot. But the workday is like 8 to 5. People are arriving at 5. If that they're arriving around, or not 5, 8, sorry. They're arriving around 8. And then they got to fire up their computer. They got to pour their coffee. They got to go have their water cooler chat with their colleagues. And oh, girl, you wouldn't believe what little Johnny did at soccer practice last night. I just want to wring his little neck. Um, whatever. And then they sift through all the emails that they got throughout the evening, maybe look at their calendar, get themselves ready, clean things up. It's usually around 9 o'clock. They're like, okay, now I'm really ready to work. And then ping, your email or call. I know that's a foreign concept to us these days, but call or email. And instead of your email being buried, with all the stuff they got overnight, yours is going to be right there, 9 a.m. Just wanted to follow up. Yes, Matthew.
I hear about that all the time about like scheduling emails to be sent during a certain time of the day because they're just
Yeah.
much more likely to. How true is that?
Oh, 100%. 150%. So when I get here in the morning, I am going to filter through my emails and say I get 20, from 5 o'clock last night to 8 o'clock this morning, right? So I'm gonna scroll and I'm gonna be like, okay, important, important, not important. That's just a notification. Okay, da da da. And I'm gonna see, okay, this one I need to respond to a little bit later, da da da. Da. But that's part of my planning. I'm not going to respond to anything as I'm planning my day. So once I kind of filtered through and I deleted all of the emails because I'm very type A in that, like I have to clear all my notifications. Like I'm not somebody like if you open up my phone, none of the apps have any notifications on. That's why I don't allow notifications because I don't like to see the numbers. It gives me anxiety. Um, so um but I'm going to go through, I'm going to scroll through, I'm going to clean out any like whether it's junk mail or spam or something I can get to later, or maybe this doesn't pertain to me, and then I'm going to start strategically thinking about who I'm going to reply to first and when and stuff like that. And so after, and when I'm in that phase of my brain, if whatever pops into my inbox, I immediately respond versus I found your email from last night and I flagged it like, yep, okay, I'm going to respond to that. Or I'm going to pay attention to that later. I can do that later. But if I'm sitting at my computer working and ping, your email is right there, I'm going to respond to it right away. Does that help?
100%. Yeah. Interesting.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. No, it's true. It's timing is everything, just like real estate. Location, 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 timing, timing, timing. Like, and so, but you have to follow up, guys. If you don't follow up, you have just put yourself behind, you know, behind the other unwashed masses that were applying for this position. Like when you follow up, I've heard employers say either no one does or maybe one person might out of everybody that they interviewed, only one person followed up. And they will always tell me this. They're like, that's the one I hired. Like if they were on the fence between people, or maybe they had some good candidates, and then one person does that little extra follow-up, bam. It doesn't take much on your part, but the more effort you put in, the better your outcome you're going to get out. All right. So that was a lot. Thank you for hanging in there with me. Thank you for the great questions. Um, through Career Services, we can do mock interviews if you guys ever wanted to practice these. You can also do mock interviews on your big interview, which is on your single sign-on, where you can also practice answering top interview questions. But if you want to do a one-on-one breakdown with me or with anybody in the Career Services team, we can always provide that for you so that you just get more and more practice. Please make sure that you guys are going to our mock interviews. We're having those. We'll have one every semester. We have them in person. We might even do some virtual ones this semester as well. But take advantage of all the stuff that Career Services has to offer you guys. We are here to help for sure. So, and we want to help. That's why we're here. So any last questions or anything I can do for you guys? This is our last presidential ambassador training for the summer as well.
No, you've been very helpful. Thank you so much for this meeting.
You're very
Yeah.
welcome. Yeah, thank you for your questions and thanks for coming.
Have a good day.
Yes, you too.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome, Matthew. I'll see you. Okay, bye-bye.